Hi Jeff Guillermo, I've been learning a lot through your videos on NAR ruling. I was wondering, can you do one on the new broker buyer presentation?
The NAR ruling.
NAR rulings.
NAR new ruling. NAR ruling.
Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be discussing the NAR ruling, the buyer broker presentation. But before we get to that, my name is Jeffrey DeSouza. I'm an active realtor, investor, and coach, recruiter who does roughly around $20-30 million every year in sales for the last 20 years. Yeah, I've done over 500 transactions. I'm also the branch manager of 2 offices. I have an organization of 300 agents plus, and we do roughly $500 million a year in sales. I'm a YouTube influencer as well as a CEO of Empowered Agents Network. Here today, I have Guillermo Reyes. He's been in the business for 23 years. He's from the San Francisco Bay Area. He's a broker associate with eXp. He's a prior owner of Keller Williams in San Mateo, California. I've worked with him for over 10 years. And it's been a blessing. Between Guillermo and I, we have 45 years of experience. And the purpose of this video is to provide high quality value to help the industry and have been through the ups and downs in real estate. So without further ado, Guillermo Reyes.
All right, let's go. I'm excited.
Yes, yes.
We've been talking about doing all of these different YouTube sort of trainings and just impart our knowledge for years. And I'm so excited, Jeff, to finally going on our 3rd YouTube video now. So that's absolutely amazing. And I know that the audience is going to grow because the message is just so impactful. So I'm super excited. Let's go.
Yes, absolutely. So the premise here is, we're talking to a buyer and how to do a presentation. So part of this question back and forth is partially script on how you talk to a buyer. Some are pointed questions. And so we're going to have Guillermo do a lot of the scripting because he is a professional. He's been a professional scripter and dialer with Tom Ferry, with multiple coaches. He's a professional with Vulcan 7, Mojo, you name it, he knows it. That's why he has my highest respect. So right now, so let's just go talk about the first one. How does working with the buyer broker benefit you in securing the right home?
Yeah, so just to back, one step before here, right? These are some of the questions that you and I talked about are to be made part of your buyer broker presentation, right? And one of them being how does working with a buyer broker benefit you in securing the right home, right? And so you'll want to have a dialogue around that question. And you want to ask that question of your buyer. And probably prior to that, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why did you decide to buy a home at this juncture? And let me ask you, how does working with a buyer broker benefit you in securing a home in this current market that we're in right now? Okay, so that's question number 1. And then you want to have your own dialogue built around that. If you don't have a buyer broker presentation, I'm sure your brokerage has one already set in place for you. Make sure that you practice it over and over and over again and master that, much like a listing presentation.
Yes, and you definitely got to get good because it's different, right? I mean, before listing presentation, we got it down packed. Now we actually got to do a presentation to the buyer. We got to show our value to get paid. And
absolutely.
So anyways, but yes, our prior videos has a lot of information, the introduction, so let's go ahead, Guillermo.
Yeah. So one of the things is that question number two, that you'll want to definitely have included in your buyer broker presentation. What are your top priorities when looking for a home? And this is when you're going to want to get into a bedroom, bathroom, areas, macro markets, and so on and so forth, right? Important. And in talking about all the requirements of finding a home, then you want to obviously ask about the macro market that they're in. And just to give you guys some tips, you're going to want to build a storyline around that. You need to find out what the list to sales ratio. Okay. So in those markets, for example, in San Mateo, what are those homes in that specific area selling for? The listing price, are they selling for 100% over asking? Are they selling on average for 103% over asking? This is where you start building your value and start building a conversation around it. So once you find out what they're looking for, oh, Mr. Buyers, what areas are you guys interested in? Oh, I'm interested in such area in whatever city. Oh, terrific. I'll make sure to do a search on that area to figure out what the list to final sales ratio is like. Oh, what does that mean? You're now creating value around these questions that you're asking. You're setting a storyline. You're setting a stage to show your value. To show your value, right?
Okay. So, as we're going through this, talking to the buyer, and then you would possibly say, is there any specific concerns you have about a home buying process that we haven't addressed yet? So, could you sort of go through this?
The home buying process that you haven't addressed, that you can get into, the contingency periods, escrow periods, inspections, right? What we do, right? Your list of you want to get into, because buyers don't know what they don't know, right? And so you're going to, again, to that question, are there any specific concerns you have about the home buying process that we haven't addressed yet? No, this is why we're here, Guillermo, Jeff. And then you can go, okay, great. I'm so glad you brought that up. I have a list of 8 or a list of 10 items that I do. One of them, I'll walk you through the finding process, the offer process, ratifying the offer, the contingency period process, the appraisal process, the lending process, escrow. So you want to go into all those items again, create the storyline, and to start showing your value. And more importantly, do you start developing rapport, which is going to lead to other things in this buyer broker presentation. Okay. So the main thing in this whole presentation is to start building rapport, and trust with that buyer. Right.
And so now that you're coming to your presentation, and then of course, one of the more important parts of the conversation with the buyer is the closing or compensation conversation. So tell us, how does that look like?
Yes. So the closing compensation conversation, if there's a nugget in this whole sort of conversation that you and I are having here, is that you never want to lead your buyer broker compensation with, are you aware, Jeff, that the NRR ruling and the DOJ have come up with new rules where now you're to pay my buyer broker commission fee? At that point, you're going to rule out any rapport building. They're going to tune you out because you're starting off with the buyer broker compensation conversation, right? So there's any takeaway here, that conversation happens right at the end of a flawless buyer broker presentation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the question would be, based on everything we covered today, Jeff, do you feel that I can help you secure the right home in a reasonable time frame?
Yes, I think you can.
Fantastic. And now you guys might want to get your paper and pen handy because this is
Right.
where you're going to be wanting to write down the script, right? So based on everything we covered today, do you feel that I can help you secure the right home in a reasonable time frame, Jeff?
Yes. Yes.
Great.
I think you can.
Terrific. Then you're probably wondering what all of this is going to cost you, right?
Right.
So, Jeff, the good news is that all of this and everything I do to help buyers secure homes may cost you nothing at all. And here's how. Part of my job is to negotiate the best deal for you. And as part of those negotiations, Jeff, I'm going to ask the seller to contribute closing costs, concessions, which could cover some or all of my 2.5% fees. Okay,
Right.
this is where you put in your fee, cover some or all of my blank fees, whatever your
Right.
fees are. And the even better news, Jeff, is you don't have to pay me anything at all until we're sitting at the closing table and giving me the keys to your new home. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Terrific. And they may ask you another follow-up question because once you sort of disclose your fee, whether it's 2%, 2.5%, 3%, whatever it is, or it could be a flat fee, whatever it is, you may come back and say, Guillermo, are there any negotiations
Yes.
in your fee? Okay. At which point you want to have a script to it, which I've come up with. I will never stand in the way of getting the deal done for you, Jeff. And while this is the minimum that we charge for our services, my goal is to save you as much as I can through the negotiations with the seller. Okay? So at that point, you're handling the objection, right?
Okay.
You're handling the objection. I will never stand in the way of getting the deal done for you, Jeff. And while this is the minimum that we charge for our services, my goal is to save you as much as I can through the negotiations with the seller. Does that make sense?
Great. Yeah, that
So-
does make sense.
Correct. So rewatch the video, write down your objection handlers, because these questions, I think, and there's going to be many more, but these are
Right.
among the top questions that you're going to get during a buyer broker presentation. And
So it's going through this. I mean, if you really have a good buyer broker presentation, you could literally handle most of the objections up front. Just as long as your presentation is pretty sharp, if not flawless, because you could handle and lead the buyer right into the just handling it properly. Then there'll be less questions because you covered it.
yes, you covered everything from neighborhoods to presenting offers.
Right.
Your presentation is going to grow organically based on your interaction with that potential buyer.
Right. This year, we'll be having quite a bit of script training. Look forward to the future, everyone. I know Guillermo and we talked about, having some training around this subject on scripting. As I said earlier in this video, Guillermo is a professional. He's been doing this for over 20 years. Objection handling is one of his specialties. Dialogue, seller presentation, buyer presentation, and now he's tackling the NAR ruling and all the changes. I mean, just the other day, there was a change on the listing agreement, and we just had a presentation on this just a week ago, and then just the other day, there's another change on the listing agreement. That's why it's important for everybody on this video to continue to stay tuned. Guillermo and I were continuing to talk about this on a daily basis, always talking to the CAR legal and also talking to our attorneys and masterminding around the subject because we want to give you the most accurate information. And of course, it's constantly changing, but always feel free to reach out to us. Our phone number is down below. So anyways, as we continue here on the objection handling questions, if a seller isn't willing to cover the closing costs, how would you feel about proceeding? This is a buyer. Here's a objection handling. How would you feel about proceeding with the transaction? Can you just sort of give us how this looks like, Guillermo?
Yes, correct. So you'll want to cover that. That's a very important conversation to have, right? If the seller is not willing to cover the closing costs, how would you feel about proceeding with the transactions, right? And at that point, you want to reemphasize that my goal is not only to negotiate concessions for buyer broker commissions, but also to negotiate terms and conditions, keep you out of liability, and get you the best price for that property. Because now the line has been drawn in the sand where clearly the listing agent is representing the seller.
Right.
There's no fiduciary to the buyer coming into the environment. That seller is paying exclusively a fee to be represented by that listing agent. So now more than ever, it is important that we articulate that value to any potential buyer. So it doesn't come just down to paying the commission at the close of escrow. Is negotiating terms, conditions, repairs, appraisal, right? Loan, getting you the right loan, helping you negotiate good terms on that loan based on your qualifications, negotiating you a great price, and in some instances, keeping you away from that particular home, which you have your eyes on, but may not be the right fit for you. So you want to talk about all of these things. And ask the seller, the buyer, what are you willing to do in case? And so one of the things is that the seller may, let's say a $20,000 commission, may be willing to pay via concessions, 10,000 of those, of that money, right? And at that point, Mr. Buyer, are you okay making up the difference for the remainder $10,000 in my commission based on the value that I've articulated? Right. And even still, you may get to the point where buyers may want to rush like cattle to the listing agent, okay, because they don't want to pay the buyer broker commission. So the big takeaway in this whole conversation today is, does the listing agent have a fiduciary to represent you? Primarily in negotiating the best value, negotiating terms and conditions, repairs, whatever it may be. Is there going to be a separation between the two, right? And there may not even be concessions allocated to that listing agent from the seller to represent any potential buyers that are coming unrepresented. Now, that listing agent may represent you via a buyer broker agreement, for which he's going to want to charge you a fee as well. And you're going to be left thinking, is that listing agent also representing me properly as far as fiduciary is concerned, right? So now more than ever, hiring the right agent that is knowledgeable, high level of integrity, and is on top of all these changes that are happening right now in real time. Okay. So that's how you handle that question. Okay. And we as agents will also be willing to walk away, right? If a buyer says, no, I don't want to pay your commission, then I can't help you. And you got to be willing to walk away. All right. So that's another huge takeaway.
Yes, I could see that addressing transparency to and avoid misunderstanding is going to be huge. You want to talk a little bit about transparency and avoid misunderstanding here?
Well, transparency and understanding that you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. The worst thing you can say, hey, go ahead and sign the buyer broker agreement, and I'll make sure to get those fees from the seller. You can't guarantee that the seller is going to pay your fee. So you start overpromising, you're going to end up under-delivering. So transparency, these are my fees, much like when you take a listing, Mr. Listing Agent, are you willing to lower your fee? You know, Mr. Smith, this is for my services, for my marketing, for my knowledge, this is my fee. While my fee is 3% or 2.5%, whatever it is, I am committed to getting top dollar for the sale of your home, which is what you want, correct? So you and I are in complete alignment that I am committed to getting you top dollar. So what's more important to you, what you're paying me in commission or what I'm going to be getting you at the end of the day for the sale of your home, right? So with buyers, you can do the same presentation. What's more important, what you're paying me commission-wise or my ability to get you the best price for the purchase of the home in the right neighborhood with the right repair negotiations or whatever it is, depending on the area. Okay. So again, articulating transparency and lining it up with your value proposition.
Well, as we close this up here, I mean, there's one here about that is designed to identify any deal breakers before they arise in the actual transaction, and that's like paying a portion of the brokerage fee that would affect your decision to move forward with the purchase of a home. Can you sort of run through this a little bit, Guillermo? I mean, because I could see that it's really going to be tricky for a buyer today because nobody wants to pay a broker a commission if they don't see the value. But if they go directly to the listing agent, and again, they wouldn't know where their interest lied, whether it's to the seller or the buyer. And, you know, the buyer could be overpaying because, of course, the listing agent has an obligation to get the highest possible price for the seller. And this could get really hairy.
So, you know, as of, I think, the last 72 hours, or it could be longer, but within the last couple of days, I looked at the listing agreement and I noticed that they added a whole new line to the page 1 of the listing agreement.
Yeah.
The buyer can now come unrepresented. Okay. 2 scenarios. The buyer can come unrepresented and the seller could pay me an additional fee to only monitor the transaction, meaning that buyer is coming technically to like a for sale by owner. Wow. It's not a for sale by owner because I'm on the MLS, but so at that point, the buyer doesn't want representation from me. However, the seller is now able to pay me a fee to monitor the buyer's offer. So I basically give him a purchase agreement and I basically just monitor him throughout the process. In other words, he represents himself. Okay, so that's one area, and so that's the danger of all the things that can go wrong, and not knowing the process, not knowing escrow, not knowing contingency periods, not knowing inspections, any of that stuff. Okay, right. So some of those are some of the things that can come up, and now the listing agreement is clear about who's representing who. Now, that buyer may want dual agency, but then again, dual agency has to be established by first creating a buyer-broker agreement with that unrepresented buyer, provided that buyer is willing to be represented. He may come in and not want to be represented, just want to write his own contract. So, you know, now these are some of the things that can potentially happen.
So as we close up here, is there anything you want to add to this? You know, this is really good information. You guys got to watch this video multiple times over. I mean, the buyer broker presentation, this is directly connected to your, how your skills and getting paid, right? And properly conveying to your buyers, how the industry works, the changes that has happened. Guillermo, do you have any other adds to our conversation here?
Just don't. I know this can be overwhelming to many of us, and either you're going to cave in to the fear of the current changes, or you're going to rise to the occasion. And you got to decide whether you're going to allow yourself to be defeated mentally because of your mindset, or you're going to attack the market and take on the challenge of these changes. We have been through many changes in our industry. I mean, over my 23-year career, okay? And there will be many more to come. We don't know what those are, but take on the challenge. My only advice, become a master of what you do, become a professional of what you do, and be ready for those buyers. When they come into your environment, make sure you have a flawless presentation. Make sure you talk about set rapport, show your level of professionalism, and then ask for the business. If you have a flawless presentation, you have a right to ask for the business, and you deserve your fee. You deserve to be paid what you're worth. You deserve to be paid what you're worth. So that's really, at the end of the day, it's all about making decisions.
Right. Well, thank you so much again, Guillermo. I'm just blessed and honored to always have this conversation with you. I mean, a true professional, just knowledgeable, amazing at your craft. And I hear so much good news from your clients. But anyways, until next time, thank you so much.
Sure.
My name is Jeffrey DeSouza with EXP Realty. To my left